It was just after dawn on March 17th when Elena Ramirez stepped outside with her old green watering can. The air still smelled like wet grass from the rain the night before. She was humming an old song her husband used to play, the same one he whistled while laying the bricks for their patio 11 years ago. She walked toward the back of the yard like she did every morning. 7 minutes. Always 7 minutes. That's how long it took to talk to him. Then she saw it, the wooden stake. The one that had marked their property line for over a decade. It wasn't where it belonged anymore. It had moved. 4 feet. 4 goddamn feet into her backyard. Elena stood there, water still pouring from the can onto her slippers. She didn't even notice at first. Her brain just stopped. The stake looked brand new. Fresh paint, like someone had planted it there on purpose. At 9:42 that same morning, the letter arrived. Official HOA envelope. Thick paper. She opened it right there on the front porch, the one her husband built with his own hands. Notice of violation. Unauthorized use of common area. $312 fine. You have 14 days to remove all encroachments or further action will be taken. Encroachment. On her own backyard. She called the HOA office right away. The woman who picked up was polite, almost sweet. Mrs. Ramirez, the board made a correction based on the new survey. It's all in the records. You really should have read the updated covenants. Elena's voice cracked. But that's my yard. My husband planted those rose bushes right there. They've been there since. Rules are rules, ma'am. We're just enforcing what's written. Elena hung up. She walked back to the kitchen, sat down at the table where she and Miguel used to eat breakfast every Sunday, and laughed. A short, broken laugh that didn't sound like her at all. She wasn't even sure why she was laughing. By late afternoon, 2 men in matching navy polos showed up with measuring tape. They didn't look at her. Just walked the new line like it was the most normal thing in the world. One of them stepped on Miguel's old tomato cage, the one still stuck in the ground from last summer. That night at 11:47 p.m., Elena woke up to the sound of a truck idling outside. She looked through the window but didn't see anyone, just headlights sweeping across her fence before disappearing into the dark. She stood there in her robe, staring at the new stake glowing faintly under the streetlight, water from the earlier spill still making her socks damp. This couldn't be real. 2 days later, Elena was dragging the big green trash bin back from the common dumpster area when she noticed the sprinklers weren't working on the left side of her yard, the side closest to the new property line. She knelt down, her knees cracking like they always did in the morning, and saw the main line had been cut clean. Not broken, cut. She didn't cry. Instead, she let out this weird little chuckle, the same broken sound from the kitchen table. It just came out. Who laughs when their yard is being taken apart piece by piece? The next notice came certified mail. This one was thicker. Failure to comply. Community enforcement costs now total $8,742, payable within 30 days. $8,742. For 4 feet of dirt that had her husband's sweat in it. She drove straight to the clubhouse that afternoon. The air in the hallway smelled like old coffee and lemon cleaner. Mrs. Patricia Langford was waiting in the small meeting room, sitting perfectly straight in her cream blouse. Not a wrinkle in sight. Elena's hands were shaking when she put the papers on the table. Look, I don't know why you're doing this to me, she said, the words catching in her throat. That's my yard, my life, my husband's last. You know what? Never mind. Mrs. Langford smiled. Not a mean smile, just a calm, professional one, like she was discussing the weather. We're just following the rules. Mrs. Ramirez, the survey was approved by the board on March 17th. Everything is documented. That night, Elena finally checked the doorbell camera footage from 11:47 p.m., the night she heard the truck. The video was clear as day. 2 figures in dark clothes, one holding a stake driver, the other shining a flashlight. They worked fast, professional. One of them even waved at the camera like he knew it was there. She sat on the edge of her bed watching it on loop, the blue light from the screen lighting up her face. The same broken chuckle came out again. She wasn't even angry yet, just floating somewhere above the rage. Word started spreading around Oakwood Estates. People she used to wave at every morning suddenly looked away when she walked by the mailbox cluster. Someone had started a rumor that Elena was being difficult and refusing reasonable solutions. By the end of the week, 3 neighbors had quietly unfriended her on the community Facebook group. Elena stood at her kitchen window the next morning, watching Mrs. Langford's silver Lexus glide past like nothing was happening. The woman didn't even glance toward the house she was destroying. That calm, that complete, ice-cold calm while ripping away the only thing Elena had left of her husband. That's when the anger finally hit. Not loud, not screaming. Just a deep, burning realization that this woman wasn't breaking any laws. She was using them like a scalpel. The loss started small. First it was the 4 feet of dirt. Then it became the rose bushes her husband had planted the spring before he got sick. The maintenance crew showed up on a Tuesday with paperwork and dug them up while Elena watched from the kitchen window. She didn't scream. She just stood there holding her cold cup of Earl Grey, the tea bag still floating inside. Next came the silence. The neighbors who used to stop and chat about tomato plants now crossed the street when they saw her coming. One woman she'd known for 7 years, the one with the golden retriever, pretended to be on her phone when Elena waved. Trust evaporated like morning dew on that same backyard grass. By the 3rd week, even the people she considered friends started making excuses. We don't want to get involved. Elena, you know how the board is. She heard it at the common hallway near the clubhouse while picking up her mail. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like they always did. That annoying low hum that never quite went away. She started sleeping less. At night, she'd walk the house touching the walls Miguel built, running her fingers over the imperfect corners he never got quite right. The quirk she'd kept for years, the 7-minute walk in the backyard, was gone now. There was a new fence post where her memories used to live. One evening, she sat alone at the kitchen table, the same spot where she laughed that first day. The house felt too big and too small at the same time. For the first time, the thought came clearly. Maybe I should just sell it. Take the money and leave this place behind. She hated herself for even thinking it, but the idea sat there anyway, heavy and real. She stood up and walked into the dark living room. Only the streetlight from outside cut through the blinds, painting long yellow stripes across the floor. Elena stood there in the middle of it all, arms wrapped around herself, listening to the distant sound of someone's wind chimes tinkling a few houses down. The air smelled faintly of the neighbor's barbecue from earlier, even though she hadn't been invited. To this day, I still don't understand why Mrs. Langford went after her so hard. What did Elena ever do to deserve that kind of focus? Some things just stay unanswered. The weight pressed down harder each day. Elena started looking up real estate listings late at night, her laptop screen glowing blue in the dark house. She was close to breaking, close to packing up the last pieces of her life with Miguel and walking away. Then on a Tuesday afternoon, everything collapsed completely. It started with one person. A retired mechanic named Mr. Kowalski from 3 houses down saw the doorbell video Elena finally posted in the community group on Tuesday the 9th. He didn't say much, just commented, "That ain't right." One sentence. But it cracked the dam. By evening, 7 more neighbors had messaged her privately. Some sent screenshots of their own quiet disputes with the board. Others admitted they'd been scared to speak up. The next morning, a small group showed up at her door, not with signs, not yelling, just coffee and quiet voices. They stood in her driveway while the sprinklers hissed on the other side of the new line. Mrs. Langford tried to shut it down the usual way. She called an emergency board meeting, sent another polished letter about proper channels, but this time the calm didn't work. People had seen the timestamp on the video. They'd seen the stake going in at 11:47 p.m. like thieves in the night. Elena didn't become loud. She stayed the same soft-spoken woman who still made tea at 6:15 every morning, but she kept showing the footage, kept answering every call. One afternoon, she stood in the common picnic area near the oak trees, the smell of fresh-cut grass heavy in the air, and simply told her story to whoever would listen. No dramatic speech, just the truth, plain and broken. The board started losing control. 3 members resigned within 2 weeks. A new survey was ordered, the real one this time. The $8,742 demand quietly disappeared from her account. The 4 feet came back, inch by painful inch, along with the rose bushes they had thrown away like trash. On a warm Saturday evening, Elena stepped outside her front door. For the first time in months, she wasn't alone. A dozen neighbors stood with her, some she barely knew, others she thought had abandoned her. They didn't cheer, they didn't clap. They just stood there quietly as the sun went down, the street lights flickering on one by one. Elena looked at her house, the one Miguel built with his own hands, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. Not the broken laugh from before, a small, tired, real smile. She never found out exactly why Mrs. Langford targeted her so coldly. Some answers just never come.